Hello, I'm Gavin Horgan, Headmaster of Millfield School in Somerset, the largest co-educational boarding school in the UK. Welcome to the Millfield Way Podcast. Here, you'll hear from teachers, coaches and students from Millfield and Millfield Prep School. Millfield is traditionally different, and this is the Millfield Way.
Hello and welcome to this Millfield Way podcast in conversation with Mark Garaway. My name's Liz Webb and I'm delighted to be joined on this lovely hot sunny day in Somerset by Millfield's Director of Cricket, Mark Garaway. Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
Now, this is your second time on the podcast, so you'll be an expert at this. The last time we did it was during lockdown, so there must be plenty to talk about and update anyone interested in cricket at Millfield about since then.
Yeah, there's been heaps. Obviously. Circumstances have changed, but actually quite a few of the lockdown things that we put into place are still part of our programme. You know, we had to adapt, and sometimes when you adapt to the circumstances around, some really good ideas emerge. So certainly from the educational bit around the non-hitting a cricket ball, catching a cricket ball and bowling a cricket ball is very much stayed. Also some of the practice methods that we had, even though, you know, we've got a brilliant indoor centre, the way that we use that indoor centre is adapted as a consequence of some of the constrained practices that the kids were doing in their backyards, living rooms and corridors over the course of lockdown, and actually some of that methodology still was retained within our programme, which is really exciting. And at the time during lockdown I said that this is a really great opportunity for us to actually get good at technique. Because when you start off as a kid, often your practice is throwing a ball up against the wall and receiving that ball and either catching it or fielding it or whatever. And what we've noticed when they came back from lockdown was how good the techniques were, despite the fact they hadn't had access to the facilities. And because our coaches worked so hard with them on remote sessions and what have you, it was really diligently done. So a lot of that has been retained into a more open world in which we live now, which is really cool. And again, yeah, as I said earlier, the educational stuff that we put on around them, but they really lapped up and the feedback was fantastic. We've retained that through as well. So there's a programme of learning that goes through Millfield cricket that isn't just about how many balls you hit, how many balls you catch and how many balls you bowl. And the other thing that was really cool, when we used to do fielding sessions in lockdown where I'd have 65 kids in their back gardens or living rooms throwing themselves around and diving and stuff all on script. I mean, it was classic. And, you know, I'm hurling myself around on concrete at the age of 48 or whatever it was, which was really cool too. And we've retained that interest, you know, so some people had never done cricket before the lockdown and just thought they'd come along and have a go, and they're still playing with us now, which has been cool. So
And it's fantastic, I guess, to see the passion and the motivation in the kids, despite not having the facility or the direct in-person coaching, that they were still wanting to do all of that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when we have things taken away from us, it can really get down into our sort of core reasons why we do the game, and sometimes confirm that hunger and passion that lies within, and we certainly saw that. You know, our numbers at school, and in particular around the girls' game, which is growing at an exponential rate around us, but I'd like to think that we were ahead of that curve and we've stayed ahead of that curve, has been fantastic. You know, and we've got some great case studies. I mean, we did a session Tuesday, a fielding session, which is an optional session out on the sunshine on the main ground, and some girls that had never played cricket before September are out there every Tuesday and Thursday practicing their fielding, and as a consequence, two of them in particular are doing some really sparky things, which is great, you know. And Catherine, one of them in year 9, she was signed up for Karen won't thank me for this, but she was signed up for golf, and she came into the cricket centre on her way to golf thinking it was a golf centre, and I said, well, I don't care, come in. And I acted like a clown at the back of a hall, did loads of fielding with her, and she was hooked, and you know, she's now playing in our A team.
That's quite a tactical move, having the cricket centre before you get to the golf centre.
I'd like
so
to
you
say
could coach
that
some
was,
of those students.
Yeah, it was part of my idea, obviously. No, but it's been fantastic, you know, to see her develop. And the great thing about girls, so Catherine's having a brilliant experience. And then, of course, next week, all of her friends turn up because she's told everybody in-house about it. And that's the way that girls' cricket and girls' sport grows, because it is such a an engaging environment. It's such a, they want to be together. It's a social place as well as a sporting place, and that's not to undermine the performance levels that they put down when they play, but it's got a different feel to it to the boys' game. And as a result, our numbers are going through the roof because you have a good experience, you bring all your mates along.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm sure our listeners would find it really useful to know a little bit about your background and your career and the previous roles that you had before coming to Millfield, and also if there has been a standout highlight in your career so far.
Oh, crikey. I don't look back very much. I was a relatively promising player who never reached the heights that he should have done, mostly because I had some really good competition in front of me and I didn't work hard enough, and certainly I wasn't mentally strong enough as a player. And then I got hooked on coaching. My dad was one of the best junior coaches that there is. He started the career of countless first-class players, a couple of international players, but also, just given that lifelong passion to thousands of kids on the Isle of Wight where we grew up. And so I had that in me, I suppose, and I always used to go and help him. So I wanted to be a coach. And then I was lucky that there was a guy called Malcolm Marshall who was probably the best fast bowler to ever play the game. And he was my mentor and he was my coach, and sadly he got ill. And he asked me to be his standing coach at the age of 26, I think it was. And of course I knew nothing, and I just did what I thought was best. But I really enjoyed it. And then he came back. He told us that he was getting well. He wasn't, unfortunately, getting well, but he came back and he said to me, they're going to offer you another 3-year contract on top of the 2 years that I still had left. But if I were you, I'd go into coaching. So unfortunately he died, and the day he died I retired and went into coaching, and I've never looked back. So I coached at Hampshire with the academy, and then I got an opportunity to go to Somerset and do the academy in the second team, which went well. We won a couple of things there, and then in 2005 I got asked to be the first team coach, and we won the T20, and then 6 months later I'm doing some stuff around the Ashes, and then I get to be assistant coach of England under Duncan Fletcher, which was really cool. And I worked with England until 2009, and went over to Ireland and was the performance director over in Ireland, so running the whole of Irish cricket, which was really cool at a very exciting time where their aspirations was to be playing Test cricket, and hopefully the time I was there helped them towards that. And then I wanted to come home because I'd been basically internationally. I'd been 7 years on the road. I wanted to spend more time with the family. When I first came to Somerset, my second day I walked into Millfield and I looked around and I spoke to the people, and I said at some stage, probably when I'm in my late 50s, I'd like to work at Millfield. So I made that a goal.
Yeah.
And then when I was thinking of leaving Ireland, I rang up the then director of sport, Graham Moore, and said, I'd really like to come and work at Millfield. And he said, well, we got a job. And I went, fantastic. He said, it's an assistant coach's job and it's £1,000 a month and it's a 6-month contract. And I thought, well, I'll give it a crack. And then I haven't gone home since. Well, I've gone home, but I haven't gone anywhere else since. So that's pretty cool. And I've been here about 12 seasons, into my 12th year.
So you're not in your late 50s yet, so you're going to be
I'm
here
not.
for quite a bit longer.
I'm hitting 50 in a couple of weeks, actually. But
so
yeah.
At least another 10 years of you being here, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe.
Fantastic. So when you were young, obviously with your dad's influence, did you always envisage a career in cricket, either as a player or as a coach? Or was there any other kind of careers that you thought you might go into? Was that always the goal?
Yeah, I would say I didn't have a plan, really. I put all of my eggs into the cricket in basket, and I've got incredibly lucky. I've never done anything other than be involved in cricket. And any sort of, I do quite a bit of like motivational talking and business management and stuff outside of school and helping people. But that's all as a byproduct of the stuff that's happened within cricket. So I'm incredibly grateful, but equally, that's very much informs the way that I support the kids here, because you don't want to be, Mark Garaway now, the same version of that. Yeah. And so we need to be far more holistic about it. And I recognised that before I worked at Millfield, and obviously, through 12 years of working alongside some fantastic people, you build some strategies up to help people that are equally as passionate at 17 as I was. But you just need to be a bit broader. And I think the biggest thing for me is that in international cricket, when somebody walked into our changing room with England, I had a good idea whether they were going to be around for a long time or a short time. And that often wasn't necessarily linked to how they hit a cricket ball, batted caught a cricket ball, or bowled a cricket ball. It was about how they perceived the world, how they could be relaxed within themselves. And that has to come from your experiences around the ages, from your school ages and before that, because all you're doing is you're preparing yourself for adult transition, really. So when Alistair Cook walked into the changing room in 2006, it was obvious he was going to be around for a long time because he was so rounded, he was so comfortable in his own skin. When Stuart Broad walked in around the same time, it was obvious. Now, I couldn't have predicted that Alistair would have played 150 plus games on the bounce, and I couldn't have predicted that Jimmy and Broady would still be opening the bowling tomorrow for England in the Ashes, in 2023.
Is that surreal when you see that happening?
It's nice because it's those two and a little bit of Joe Root and a little bit of Ben are they're the only ones left.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have it, and there will be a funny day, I suppose, when the inevitable happens, and those two in particular retire after achieving amazing stuff. When I probably think, crikey, I'm quite old now. That people that I coached are retiring, and we just had that with James Hildreth. I coached James Hildreth at the age of 16. He was on my academy at Somerset, and he retired last year, and then he played last weekend. Yeah. For the OMs here, and and obviously I've known Hildy all my coaching life in Somerset, and that's a bit weird.
And he was just awarded OM of the Year as well.
Absolutely, and he could not believe that. When you look at the other people that got the award on the night, and this is where again he knew he was going to last because he had a humility, he has values. I mean, he's going back to the cricket club that he started playing at. He travels 3.5 hours every Saturday to go and play at the cricket club that he started playing at, because that is what sits inside James Hildreth. And at the age of 17, 18, he was my ears within the changing room, and he would be coming up to me and going, Andy Caddick's had a rough night. The kids have been up all night, just go easy on him. And and he had that, and you knew that he was going to be around for a long time. And that's where that holistic thing is so important. That's why you don't want people that was like the version of me when I was young, where I was so narrow focused. And I think we do that brilliantly at school, and I've certainly built up a skills bank working alongside other people, which has hopefully given our pupils a better chance when they transition into adult cricket, business, life, families, all of those things.
And if you had to pick one kind of standout moment of your career so far, what would be the biggest thing that impacted on you?
That impacted on me as a coach would be, I think it's more about the understanding of what goes beneath individual people and teams, really, because those moments happen, and I've been really lucky. I've won more trophies, or the teams that I've coached have won more trophies that I could point and stick at. But often when you sit in the pub and talk to people about it, you don't talk about those things, you talk about the people, really. So it's what underpins those successes, I think, is the exciting bit. So I'm rubbish at answering that question.
You've avoided it. Well done.
Yeah, it's not avoiding it. It doesn't really resonate hugely with me.
Yeah.
I could talk about beating Australia, who were world champions when I was coach at Somerset. I could talk about winning the T20, but actually I'm more interested about learning about, telling people about what I learned from Graham Smith. He was my captain. He was 23 years old, but like a 50-year-old in terms of his wisdom, and all of those things. And that's no different here. It's the journey that people go on that really excites me, rather than the trophy or the accolade or whatever.
So you've touched on it a bit already. What would you say is your coaching philosophy? And do you think your coaching methods have changed a lot over the years?
They've definitely adapted. I don't think they've changed hugely. I'm not one for a coaching philosophy, because as I learn more, it adapts. But I think fun has to be at the heart of it, because the reason why, I've driven in today and just had a brilliant session with 2 of the kids in the indoor centre is because it's brilliant fun. and I've never considered anything to be work, and that's really helpful. So fun has to be at the cornerstone of it. So that's the starting point for me. And then, I mean, we've got 3 pillars within Millfield Cricket that we are consistent with our language and behaviours and action around, which I think is really important, not just in cricket, but also in life, is to be ready. So be prepared. So, and that's about, getting your kit ready, understanding what session you're going into, so reading the session plan so you can be ahead of the game. So when you walk into that session, you've already done some preparation, which gives you the best chance of success. Because everything that we do is about best chance of success. And then to always compete, and that ability to compete is against yourself, and it's also against the opposition. And most of the time in life, we generally lose the first battle against ourselves before we give ourselves the opportunity to compete against somebody else. So we do a lot of work around some strategies that help that to happen, and create lots of opportunities for people to compete against each other, and then to recognise the learning that comes out of that. And then thirdly, it's to finish the job, and for me, finishing the job is if somebody's 80 not out in the middle, getting 120 not out to win the game and walk off with the adulation and the claps of your teammates. There's no better feeling in that. It could be, being 5 not out and actually you're not the brilliant batter, but finding a way to be 7 not out at the end where somebody scored 70 to win the game. It can be tidying the changing room at the end of the game. It can be putting the balls away after you've just had a round on the bowling machine. Whatever the case, finishing things off is really, really important. So those are our pillars, but it's underpinned by fun.
And so who do you have working alongside you? Because you don't do all of this on your own, do you,
I certainly don't.
Who else is in your team?
So recently I've had a guy called Tim Simmerlight join us. And Tim is a fascinating fella. He's a deputy headmaster, trade many years ago. He was actually my Isle of Wight under-15 captain many, many moons ago. And he was an opponent because he played for Shanklin and I played for Ventnor, and so we used to compete against each other a lot. But we grew up together, and we ended up working together in Ireland, and Tim was my number 2 over in Ireland. I was always really looking for a way that we could see if we could attract him into this school with his academic background and history, and also his love of the game, his ability to coach. And so Tim works alongside me. His job is to oversee the boys year 9 and the year 10 program. So he manages that. I assist within that. And he works with all of our teacher coaches to put that program down in the summer, and obviously leads that development program in the winter. And then acts as one of our development coaches, working on a one-to-one basis with players in lunchtime. I've got Ryan Buckley, who's actually just about to make his step up into becoming a director of cricket himself. He's moving to Sherborne, and we see our department very much as a developmental one, not just for the children, but also for our coaches that come in. So in Dan Hallisfay, who's taken 2 significant roles within the women's game. He's now working at South East Stars. He was at Western Storm as the academy director. Is somebody who's made the transition out of our department. Also, Kieran Peters has followed suit, and he's at Somerset now. So it's really important for us to be helping people to move to their next paths. And Ryan's the recent one that's moving to become a director of cricket, which gives us a great opportunity to bring somebody else in that we can help to mould and in their life. And also Ethan Harris, who's our fast bowling coach. And then I've got Sam Braid. So Sam is our private coach. So Sam works privately. He's also my assistant coach in the Mayors. And anybody that works privately and does some coaching in the evenings also gets stuck into our programme as well. So those pillars that I talked about, the way that we practice, there's a thread running through the whole of Millfield Cricket as a result of our office, really. And what I insist from our office is that we're really public facing, both to parents, to players, to teachers, coaches. So the philosophies that we do with the players that see us the most also then trickle into our B's and C's and softball and Marauders team, which is one of our social teams. So we have that element of fun and those 3 pillars going through the whole of Millfield Cricket.
Fantastic. And we're very lucky here at Millfield with the facilities and the size of the campus. Tell us about the cricket facilities that we have, and how do they help you deliver the programme, and how do they compare to other schools?
Well, I'm going to start with the one that people won't think is a facility, but our grass facilities, as in the squares that we've got across, are outstanding. I mean, the main field and the junior field, I think, are two of the best blocks of wickets in the country. You could play brilliant test matches out on both of them. And what that does is it provides our players with a fantastic surface to which to learn their game on. Ones that adapt, which I think is really important because the best cricketers in the world are the most adaptable, but also, the quality of them and the amount that they get to play on them is just outstanding. So if there's rain all over the country, you'll play cricket at Millfield, and that's a testament to the ground staff that we have working with us. They're not just their specialism and their skills, but also their just enthusiasm and stubbornness to get games on. I mean, you think about the first 2 weeks of this summer, it was terrible weather. I mean, you look out the window now and you think that it didn't happen, but it did. And we got more games on than anybody else in the country, and that's fantastic, because it just got our season going. And from a mental health point of view, the amount of messages I had sent to me by parents, teachers and players saying thank you, and it's got nothing to do with me, it's down to Craig Richardson and his team. So I always start with that because I think that's our biggest point of difference, because you can always build an indoor centre, and a number of schools have. I think the difference with our indoor centre currently is the attention to detail that went into its design, which sounds a bit weird because I designed it, so that sounds a little bit egotistical. but it's the first centre in the world that had different types of wickets in there to create the adaptation opportunities for bowlers and batters. Now I'm helping people design centres all over the world with the same principles that underpin it. There's an indoor fielding area which has got different grass, so you can dive full length on it. So all of our wicket keepers, or all of our fielders have a confidence to go to ground without us having to put mats down, because as soon as you put a mat down, we know that the body moves differently to hit the ground than it would do if we're outside. So those types of things are really important. And then just its space, in the fact that any fast bowler in the country can have a full run up. So as soon as we opened it, I had people ringing me up. England were ringing me up saying we need to prepare for test matches by getting them down there, because if it rains, they can get a full run up out. All the counties that in the local region train in there. But we get them to train alongside our pupils rather than, in different times. And it's been brilliant to watch some of our pupils compete and watch and learn and ask questions. And equally, Gloucestershire this year have been in there a heap. And the way that their players have engaged with our kids and encouraged our kids and coached our kids has just been magnificent. And that is that cross sort of fertilisation thing I really enjoy. Same when the England women were down last year, the way that Heather and her team engaged with our girls and our staff was just magnificent. And that's what those types of facilities, they encourage people to come and use them. And same when New Zealand women were here for 12 days, you learn so much, but they just go wow. And if you've got the best players in the world saying wow to our grass and to our indoor facilities, then you've got something good.
And then we also have the pitches up at King Weston as well, which have
come on so much. I mean, when I first got here, they weren't very good. They were, in comparison with everybody else, they were about the same, but they weren't very good. And there were different characteristics to the squares. And again, Craig and his team have worked wonders. And I go up there now and watch games of cricket that are transferable into any level of a game, and that's what you want, really.
Millfield is well known for sport nationally and internationally, but first and foremost, we are a school, and so academics is front and centre of everything we do. How do you work with the academic and pastoral sides in terms of managing an athlete's holistic programme?
Yeah, well, it's absolutely essential. And if you think about the challenges of a cricket season, it falls at the time where the pressure on pupils is the highest. And we're right in the heart of it at the moment. And it's really important that we recognise that, not just in these 6-7 weeks that we're in now, but also recognise that over the previous 3 years of our journey here as well. So we know that cricket and exams are going to coincide. So we have to prepare, and it goes back to our pillars, be ready. So any cricketer, you're not going to do all of your revision at Easter, because you've probably got pre-season with your county, or you've definitely got a festival with us. So we have to start that process a lot earlier, and the relationship that I have with the heads department, with their group tutors is absolutely crucial, particularly for those that are going to have a lot of traffic around how many days they're going to be pulled in this direction or that direction by their county, as well as what's happening here. So the players all know that they have a responsibility. If a request comes in for them to go and play for Somerset, Hampshire, England, whatever, they know that the first question that I will ask is where are you in relation to your academics? And, we go to the house parents, we go to the group tutor, we go to heads of year and make sure all of that is in line. But the reality is I don't have to do that very often because we've been on top of that for 3 years. And I think that's a really important lesson that pupils know that with all these privileges that they can have, there's a responsibility that underpins it. And then from a pastoral side, the life journeys that we get involved with over 5 years are so varied. Their circumstances are so varied. We've got kids coming from all over the world, and culturally there are massive changes. With COVID, we had some children that didn't see their parents for 2 years. So the pastoral element of it, I think, is the most exciting element of all of the bits of our jobs. And we love supporting the kids through all of their different nuances and circumstances. And it's certainly, when you ask me a question, how have my philosophies developed? I wouldn't call it a softer side, I've got a broader perspective now as a result of working here for as long as I have and working with the children and their parents through life than I ever have had. And I genuinely think out of everything I've ever done, that's probably had the biggest positive effect on me as a person. So I really dig it. I really enjoy it. And I think that's the one thing I hear back the most is, my cover drive came on pretty well. I can now bowl quicker, all of those lovely things. But actually, it's the messages you get back are about how you supported people through their journey here and beyond.
Fantastic. And in terms of the numbers of students playing cricket here, what does that look like for the boys and the girls game? And how much has the girls game moved on in the last few years? Yeah,
so when I walked in the door, we had 7 cricketers in the girls' game. So we'll start with that. 7 cricketers. And obviously the game, the women's sport was beginning to really emerge. So it was obvious what was going to happen. I'm really lucky. I work for the ECB as well as work here. So we're in the coach education department. So I get early insights into funding mechanisms and all of that. So whilst our intention was always to grow the game, we also knew that the external game was going to grow that would support the girls beyond Millfield. So it was great if we did that, but also the club network needed to change, the county network needed to change, and it has. So which has been really exciting, and it gives any girl, we've got the year 8s in today in their transition day, and they will be female cricketers because they do such a good job down at the prep at helping girls to learn about the game. There'll be 2 or 3 girls in there that will look at the England pathway and look at the way that Millfield is set up and think, I've got a chance of doing this, which is really exciting. So that's grown. We've got 4 hardball teams now and some softball teams. So we've gone from 7 kids to having 96. We put a programme around them all the year. So Catherine, for example, I talked about, she was practising across the first 2 terms and has her skills, competence and passion for the game evolved. More sessions, she was able to join more sessions. So, it's huge in the girls. So there's 96 girls playing at the moment, and we've got a lot of female coaches, teacher coaches, that are now doing some really cool things and are qualified and confident to be able to deliver that alongside Ryan and Liberty, that are our main 2 coaches, and it's a really exciting space, that one. And then the boys, we have 3 hardball junior sides at year 9, 3 hardball junior sides at year 10. And there's 15 in each squad. And then we have a softball programme that goes on outside, and that softball programme has been great this year because there's 2 or 3 kids that have experienced that in a safe environment and actually now are ready to play hardball cricket. So there's that real progression. In the last 2 weeks of terms, there's 3 of them that are playing their first hardball games of cricket, and they wouldn't have done that without the softball programme. So that's really cool. So year 9s and 10s, we would have typically 80 children playing in each of those year groups. And then obviously when you get to year 11, 12, 13, We run 5 sides and a softball programme. So there's 15 in each of those squads. That's quite a lot. I'm not going to do the maths because I'm not very good at maths, but we have a lot of people playing. And again, we try and scale the matches so we put lots of matches in for our top teams, a lesser number of matches for our sort of third team, fourth team, our social side. But we scale them down at this stage of the year because obviously, you don't really want to be sticking cricket matches in and adding pressure to somebody's. So we front load a lot. And then for our top players, we've got 10 international sides coming to play us in the last week. So there's a game of cricket every day for everybody at a time of the year where they can focus solely on their cricket.
Fantastic. I was just going to ask you, with fixtures, are they mainly against other schools or are they against other counties or international sides? How does that work?
So our top teams, what we tend to do is play against top cricket schools, and so you've got we're in a great region for that. It's a fantastic region for cricket. One of the reasons why I came to Somerset in the first place was that the passion for it was so high, and the number of independent schools that are playing cricket to a high level is great, so the competition's always good. So we play mostly schools for our lower sides, and then for our top sides on Sundays and midweeks we play representative sides. So sometimes they can be counties, county academies, EPPs. Our girls play against Somerset and various other counties as well. But we also introduce university sides in there because it's about the transition onto the next level. We also bring adult sides. So yesterday we had a side from Wiltshire, men's side, play against our first team, which is our second tier side here at the school.
Who won?
We managed to win. It was a brilliant game of cricket, absolute brilliant game of cricket, and we managed to win that one. But the way that men play is different to the way that schools play often. So again, having to adapt against that opposition is fantastic, and it best prepares people for club cricket and beyond.
Fantastic. And I know you've already talked about how you're constantly adapting the programme as you learn more. Do you have any specific plans for the cricket programme going forward?
Yeah, we do actually. So we've started. We started this 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been really exciting. So we have a transitions programme which introduces people to universities, but also to overseas academies that they use in a gap year, and also into a professional game. But increasingly so, our old Millfield Cricket Club is now quite a big thing. So we have a great transition rate of our leavers going into that. And that's fantastic for their cricket, but also from a social and from a networking point of view is outstanding. So we've got 4-prong attack to our transitions. And then inside the sixth form, we give them opportunity to become trained officials, scorers and coaches. So we look to, we've had 10 children go through their coaching badge, first page coaching badge this year. As I talk at the moment, out on the main ground, they're all coaching the year 8s at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant. And a number of those are doing some great stuff in local clubs here and also back at their clubs at home. And that, again, is for me, is so important. So we're building that even more. The umpire one is really interesting because as we sit here now and talk, we've got one of our lower 6 students has just become the youngest ever international umpire, because she's umpiring a tournament out in Africa at the moment. So Scarlett is doing a brilliant job, and by the time she comes back, she's got 8 international matches that she's officiated in, and another 3 that she's acted as third umpire with all the TV gizmos.
That's amazing.
Which is just incredible. And the industry of sport is massive, and it's so varied now. It's not just about being the best player. So, I've got kids that are in our lower 6th, and their aspiration is to go to Australia or South Africa to do a gap year, come back, go and do some teacher training, and then get a job at an independent school doing teaching, and that for me is so important, because if we don't have that stuff going on, the game dies, and we need the game to be going forward. So that's big, and it's only going to get bigger, our transitions program, and that kicks in from year 11 all the way through to when they end in upper 6th, and then beyond, with all of our transition threads and veins that we've got going into different places, which is really cool. So that's great. And then, from a facilities point of view, we're well loaded, that is for sure. But it's just, I'm really working towards us having Junior Field, having a pavilion that can service our umpires, pupils and and our parents, from a hosting point of view, because there's a real big difference between that, which is also a fantastic rugby environment, and what we've got. I think that's really important. It'd be really nice for us to have that. And then some of our analysis systems, inevitably technology moves on, and some of our analysis systems that were leading 5 or 6 years ago in terms of match analysis now are not. So upgrading that, so parents and opposition coaches a million miles away can tap into every game, can access the stats, can track the players even better than they do at the moment. So those are my next sort of 2 big things. But also I'm very cognizant that if things sometimes have to consolidate, and we move on, this place moves so quickly, and one of the things that I've learned the last few years is that sometimes we just need to dig down deeper into some of the things that really, really work, and we've got a lot of stuff that works.
Fantastic. And are there any ones to watch that we should be keeping our eye on?
Yeah, so again, the girls' game, there's a couple that are already on Western Storm. So you've got Lily in year 11 and Layla in year 10, and both of those are doing some pretty funky things and displaying some really good behaviours and skills that are transitional into the higher bits of the game, and that's really exciting because the women's game is going forward. Keep an eye on Scarlett, our umpire, because she could be the best women's umpire ever. She's awesome. That's really exciting. And then in the boys' game, Dominic Kelly, he played for England and was man of the match in the Ashes at the age of 17 in an under-19 tournament. So he's got some really good stuff. And then further down the school, I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to put them under too much pressure, but we've got a really nice year 9 group currently. Probably the best that I've ever had at the school. And that's really exciting. And 2 or 3 of those players have had some exposure into our older teams and have really coped with that nicely, and that's a great early indicator. So, there are some very good players at the school. There's no 2 ways about it. We've always had that. But I think what we're seeing now is that our B sides are incredible. Our C sides are incredible. And as our programme has shifted to when I first got here, only to be in the top players, everybody feels Millfield cricket now, and as a result of that, our B sides are tough to beat. I mean, the other week, this is brilliant. The other week we had our B side in the County Cup playing King's A team. King's A team under 15 are seriously strong, and when I got to the ground, Kings were really struggling. Now, obviously, their quality and their depth won the day. But I was so proud of the way that the B-side kept competing and their enthusiasm and passion and what have you. And as a consequence, they go against most other teams' B-sides, and we mix the orders around, and it doesn't really matter what order we put people in. They're winning some really good games by playing some great cricket. And the other day we had the under 14As played the under 14Bs in the County Cup, which was fantastic. And for a part of that game, the B side competed with the A side, and that's really good. And it's great because it keeps everybody on their toes. We're seeing now some transition from B to A rather than just being the same old players going through. And one of our lads got 50, his first 50 for the school yesterday, playing in that adult game. He played in the B side 2 years ago, under 15s, and he's now in the second tier team at school, a year and a bit on. And that can happen, and our pathways are open enough that does happen, and that's really exciting.
Fantastic. It must be really enjoyable and very rewarding when you see those students coming through. Right, the final question, Mark. What would be your 3 main takeaways for listeners about cricket at Millfield? If you wanted them to remember 3 things from this podcast, what would that be?
I would say that it's fun. Hopefully that's come across. I would see that it's open and it's multifaceted. It's not just about the best player at school being really good and going on and playing for counties, and it's so not about that. In fact, it used to be all about that, and our honours board is growing. We've got 2 more that are going on there. They've just made their debuts in List A cricket. We'll always have that, but I think it's the depth and the multifaceted nature of our programme which is really exciting me the most.
And if people want to know more about cricket at Millfield, where should they look?
Yes, we've got an Instagram and a Twitter social media site. Obviously, Millfield Sport, Twitter and Instagram is a great place to go. And then the website, you click on sports, and obviously cricket is up there amongst all of our other brilliant sports at the school. And then, the last thing, actually, going back to that previous question, Liz, is just the number of... we don't have specialist cricketers at Millfield, so... The only time Dominic now only does cricket, but that's only because England's insurance document says that's all he's allowed to do. And everybody else within the programme is a hockey player, a tennis player, a basketball player, a golfer, whatever. And that's so important because in 7 years of international cricket, whatever shape ball we put in front of international athletes, they can deal with. I had one exception who couldn't, and his name was Monty Palestine. But everybody else could deal with it, So Jimmy Anderson, could play everything, and he could throw darts both hands, and it's so important that we give people that roundedness. Going back to my previous point, when somebody walks in, whether they're here for a short time or a long time, and it's the ones that have had those experiences that are really important. And I think Millfield is a great place for opportunities.
And I think I remember hearing at the OM of the Year Awards that Hildreth was a hockey player, was he not?
He was a hockey player, tennis player, footballer.
Before you even started on cricket.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's that's never a bad thing. So Andrew Strauss, I got him to come and do a talk just after he retired, so that's quite a long time ago now. And the first thing he said is he was asked what's the best bit of advice you could give to any parents. Keep your kids playing as many sports for as long as they possibly can. And it's so important, but it goes beyond sport for me. It's about music, it's about drama, it's about academics, it's about the things that you get into in-house and the behaviours that you learn in there about how to tolerate and how to support and be kind and all of those things that told me when Alistair Cook walked into that change room that he was going to be around for a long time. And the same with Stuart Broad.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. It's a perfect point to end the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really interesting, and I'm sure our listeners will be learning a lot about Millfield cricket. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Millfield Way podcast in conversation with Mark Garaway. Thank you and goodbye.